you.
Thank you, Marlene. Hello, everyone. Glad you're all here. Why don't I actually just share my screen and we can kind of get rolling along. So yes, as Marlene said, my name is Peter Andryszewicz. I am a member, or I'm one of the founding partners at Workforce Strategies International. We are a boutique consulting firm. We're focused on organizational design and competency management. We've been in existence for about 3 years now as this current iteration, but between the three of the partners on the firm, we've got decades and decades and decades of experience around this stuff. We love to geek out around this stuff, so I will try not to be totally speechy because I can talk about this stuff for hours. But because we're going to be a smaller group, what I was hoping to do was to address maybe some specific issues or questions you guys may have. So I will go through my presentation, but I'll try to make it a little bit quicker for everyone. And then we can kind of get into more if there's any real questions or concerns, and we can really kind of see if we can't do a little bit of a deeper dive into some of those. And hopefully everyone can walk away having gotten some value from that, okay? So let us move on. So the goal for today, it's pretty self-explanatory. I'd like you guys to walk away with an understanding of what competency-based hiring is, how it functions, and then understand how, if you do this, you can save yourself some time, money, and frustration on the whole hiring process. So why focus on hiring? It's pretty simple. It's an important part of your organization. You don't grow without it. And when the BDC did a survey a few years ago, what they ended up finding out was that out of the top 4 high growth strategies that businesses were employing, building your talent pool ranked number 2. But what that means is not just hiring people, because that's an important part, but also developing people internally and making sure that they're doing what you need them to do. Overall, though, hiring people just for the sake of hiring people isn't going to grow your business. You have to hire the right people. And that's kind of what we're going to talk about a little bit today. So some questions for you to think about as we go through this. Have you ever hired anyone before? How well did it go? Are they still with you? Or if not, how long did they last? Overall, how satisfied were you with the entire process of hiring this individual? And as kind of some bonus questions to be thinking about, how much did it cost you? Did you track the hiring costs of this person? And by that, I'm talking about not just the financial costs, but the time, the effort, the training, and everything else you've done. All right. So I'm just going to give you a few stats just to kind of put some structure around what we're doing here. But what is the cost of hiring? So Burson and Associates did a study some years back, and they found that if your company was between 100 and 999 people, it costs you about $3,600 per hire. If you're a 10,000 plus company, it goes down to under $2,000. Now, I don't know how many of you have companies that large. Ours is not. So obviously it costs a little bit more to hire someone, but it's not a huge amount of money. Where it really starts becoming some more significant money is really when you start getting into those replacement costs. What does it cost to replace an employee? And so the US Labor or Department of Labor projected that they estimate it costs about 1/3 of an employee's salary to replace them. So if you're talking about a $60,000 person, you're talking about a $20,000 cost to replace that individual. The Society for Human Resource Management pegs it at anywhere up to 5 times their salary, which, if you're a small business, that you don't have that kind of money. You don't really have the luxury of doing that. So what percentage, knowing these numbers and knowing how critical it is for a small business to hire the right people, how many do you think are putting in the right effort and having nothing but successful hires? The reality is that Harvard Business Review did a study on that, and they found only 19% of new hires are considered fully successful. What that means to you is that not that 1 in every 5 people you hire are going to be successful. It means that every person you hire only has a 1 in 5 chance of working out for you. Only 20% chance that you're going to have the right person. Robert Half did a study, and they found they surveyed 1,400 executives, and 36% of them said the number one reason that hires failed was a poor skills match. The second most common reasons was unclear performance objectives. Now, when you start looking at this and you start dissecting, what do these numbers all actually mean? What it really means is that the poor skills match means that you, as the employer, didn't understand what you were hiring for. The unclear performance objectives, that's kind of a little bit of both ways. The person may have not even applied for your job if they actually understood fully what they were applying for. And the worst part of all of this is that many small businesses keep poor hires around because it's easier to keep someone around than it is to find someone new. So I'd like to change that. I'd like to change that and change the way you're doing things and the way you're thinking about it so that it becomes less challenging and less daunting to hire a new person and improve the chances that the first person you hire will work out anyways. So this is where we come to that qualifications-based hiring versus competency-based hiring. By qualifications-based hiring, I'm talking about the standard, the status quo that everyone hires with. We're talking about resumes, experience levels, and education. Now, if you've ever seen a resume or you know anybody who's had to apply for a job, you'll know that they're perfectly honest on their resume. There's no lying, there's no stretching the truth, there's no making things up. What you see on the resume, 100% accurate, right? That would be super false. We all change, we all do things differently. We cobble together the experience that we need. Speaking of the experience that we need, it's obviously a great indicator of success, right? If somebody's experienced, they're perfect, they're brilliant at their job. The reality is that in terms of predicting success, experience on a scale of 0 to 1 is only 0.4 to 0.6. Let's split the difference and call it 50-50. Experience has got a 50-50 chance of being successful. You might be wondering why. Well, I mean, I want you to think about it in this perspective. You're hiring for a job and you want 10 years experience. Why do you want those 10 years of experience? Because you're using that as a proxy of their ability to do the job, of their mastery or proficiency within that job. But what if that person had 10 years of experience of doing something, but they only did it once a year? They did it 10 times. Maybe they had somebody else do it and they just oversaw it. On the other hand, you could hire someone with 6 months experience, but that person did it every day, approximately 125 times. Who's the better choice for you? What does experience mean then? So if I were to even just stop here, I hope there's something that you can pull away from this. When you're looking at someone's experience, if you're going to continue down the qualifications-based hiring, power to you. But I want you to think about what experience means and how you can determine whether the experience is actually going to give you what you're looking for. 10 years experience, they did it 10 times in their life. 6 months experience, and they did it 125 times. That's what you need to be digging down to. When you're looking at experiences, how big of part of your job was whatever it is I need you to do? How often did you do it? How successfully did you do it? Did you achieve the end result that you needed to achieve or that you want achieved at your company? And that's really where we come to competency-based hiring. So what do I mean by competency-based hiring? In the simplest terms, it really means understanding the competencies that you need someone to have to be successful in the role, and then you're able to measure all applicants across that. But for some of you, this term competency might be confusing. It certainly was for me when I was first starting down this, because there's almost as many definitions of competency as there are practitioners within the competency space. So at our company, when we define competency, what we're really talking about is the demonstrated ability to integrate knowledge, skills, aptitudes, and attitudes to deliver a required outcome under defined conditions. In other words, what is it that people need to be able to do to achieve the outcome that you need in order to be successful? So what does that mean? If you just took that, what does that mean for your organization? What can you start doing today? Now, you don't have to jump out there and start writing competencies the way we do. You don't have to be thinking about this all day and night. You don't even need to really put any structure around it if you don't want to, or if you're not able to, or you don't have the time for it. But what you need to think about in your role is what it is that you want people to do. And really think about it. And then why? Why do you want them to do that? What is the result that you are driving for? And really think about that and really understand that. And if you just did that and you just wrote out, we need them to be able to do X because I need Y. And if that's all you did, you would already be ahead of the game, because most companies don't do that. They don't think about it into that level. And then once you've written that down, iterate. As you hire people, as you bring people on, as you talk to the incumbents that are doing the job, talk to the people that have done the job or are doing the job, make the changes that you need to make, modify, change it. Once you know what it is that you want and why you want them to have that, then start thinking about how can they prove it. And that's the crux of competencies. It's that demonstrable. They need to be able to prove this. There needs to be a way to prove it. And if what you've written can't be proved, it's not a competency, because that means people can't do it in a way that's going to be provable. So then start writing that down. What do we need to see? So I'm going to use an example from our company. We're in the process of hiring an administrative assistant. We sat down, we talked about it, we curated a list of here's what we need. And the list included, I think it was 20 items or so on there, the things that we wanted. And then we sat down and thought about how are we going to make sure these people can do this? What are we going to do? And we came up with 4 tasks, 4 tests that people need to do in order to show us that they can do these things. Number 1, this is a remote role. We want someone here in Calgary. We want them to be able to come into the office and meet with us when we need to. But at the same time, they're mostly going to be working on their own without any supervision. So what do we need? We need someone who can listen. And we need someone who understands technology a little bit, because, well, we work remotely. So they need to be able to do things remotely and understand different kinds of software. What's our test? Our first test is really simple. We give them a website for it's a free typing test, and we say, go do the typing test and send us your result. Little trick in there. There's no way to send that result through the website. None. You have to figure that out. So we had, for this job, we had about 90 people apply. All 90 of those people got the first email saying, go to this website, take the test, send me your results. 10 people managed to do it. 11 if you count the person who just wrote their score in rather than actually sending me proof of their score. 90 people, gone. I eliminated 80. The next step, we need them to be able to edit documents and reports and things that we do like this. We have a piece of writing that was not edited that we give them and say, edit this, go through it, take a couple days, fix this up. Oh, and by the way, make it look nice. Add a footer, add a header, add a blah, 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 blah. Whatever it is that you think is going to make it look nice, do it, send it to me. Next step, and really the final step, one of the things we need them to do is we need them to be able to do some research to help us target clients, to help us craft our messages. So a little bit of marketing. We give them a NAICS code, which is just a national industry code around certain industries. And we say, go review this. I give them a week and I say, give me the top 10 biggest companies in the industry and give me the name of their CEO and a contact information, if they can. And if they can't, that's not a problem. Tell me why. And I don't actually care about these companies. Within our firm, we know these companies. We've seen them, we've looked at them, we've researched them. But what I want to know is what are they doing to figure this out? What is their process? How are they doing it? Does this match with what we're doing? Only then, only after they've done that, will I even bother scheduling an interview with them. They've gone through and they've shown me they're capable of doing the things that we need them to do. that they will be doing on a daily basis. They've shown me that over a week or, well, a little over 2 weeks. And then the ones that are left, the ones that actually did it, the ones that actually did it well, those will be the ones I talk to. Now, this is a relatively low complexity position. I'm not hiring a chief engineer. I'm not hiring a, pharmaceutical scientist. But it's still, we took the time to say, what is it that we need them to do? How do we need them to do this? Then we said, great, go do it. Prove it to me. Prove it to me that you can do what we need you to do. Thus far, only one person has made it all the way to the end. They applied early. The other 9 are working through the process now. Heck, I even put the job on LinkedIn and I said, right in the post, it says, send me your resume and cover letter, which I actually haven't looked at, and your writing sample, which I do look at, to opportunity@workforcestrat.com. Anyone who applies on LinkedIn now, I'm not even looking at their resume because they're not listening. They're not following instructions, and I need them to listen and follow instructions. This is what I'm talking about. It was simple. We didn't come up with a big profile for this person. We didn't come up with the 8 to 12, 15 competencies of things we need. We merely talked about what is it that we need this person to do and how can we quickly and easily test for it. A lot of people self-selected out. I didn't have to worry about them. All it took me was a copy paste as I responded to them. That's significant reduction in time and frustration. That's a significant time and reduction in the kind of cost that we're doing. Hasn't actually cost me any money thus far. It has cost me some time, but not a lot of time. So really, what is this value of this competency business? What do we mean when we talk about competency? What is it that I want you guys to be thinking about? I want you to be thinking about understanding the role, understanding what it is that people need to do, the results they need to do. And I know I've said that before, and I'm going to say it again and again and again, because that's really all a competency is. What are they doing for what outcome? But by having these competencies defined within your organization, you're able to start building standards. You're able to start building standardization and processes around that. So that when you need to hire someone again in the future, if it's for that particular role, you already have that. And if you've hired the wrong person and you got to let somebody go, take a look at why. What was it from your list that wasn't there or was there? What was missing? What should have been added? What wasn't added? How do you need to change your approach? How do you need to change your thinking? What wasn't clear before that you can make clear now? This way, it becomes easy for whoever is doing the hiring, whether it's yourself or whether it's somebody else in your organization, whoever's hiring is able to look at things and say, okay, I know what I need. This person has it. Or the other way to think about it is, we know what we want. And when you've looked at these competencies, you can say, which of these particular competencies are easy to train for, that you're willing to train for, and which of these competencies aren't easy to train for. They're really challenging. And are you willing to train for them? And you're able to start dividing this information and parsing through this information and structuring it in ways that's going to make more sense to you and make your hiring process quicker and faster and easier. All right, I'm pretty close to wrapping up here, folks. So when you start looking at these competencies, there's a little bit more that goes from there. Today, it's really, I want to focus on the hiring portion. So we're about to finish up and we're about to start talking and hopefully answering some questions. But really what we're talking about is what else can you do with these competencies? It's not just the hiring. You're able to also training and development, because you're now beginning to understand what it is that you want people to do and for what outcome. You can now start focusing your training on whatever's missing. Don't worry about everything else. If they've got the competencies you need, just focus on the ones that they're weaker on or they don't have. You're able to take this and use it for performance management. People that are already in your organization, look through. Hey, this is where you are. This is where I need you to be. Here's the plan of how we're going to get you there. You're looking at career pathing. So people can start planning, and it gives people that power, a little bit of power over their careers, and they can start planning and say, okay, I'm here. Here's the competencies I have. I want to get up to here. Here's what I'm missing. Here's how I can get there. And then for succession planning, you're able to look at what is needed and what do the people have. I actually have a really great example around that, which I'll say real quickly. We have a client down in the US. They're a maritime infrastructure company. They are basically project managers. When the senior project manager was retiring, they had 9 people to choose from. Their favorite, who we ended up calling, let's just dub this person the golden boy, that was the one they were going to hire. But they decided to double check. We came in, we did an assessment. We created the competency model around the senior project manager role. We checked everybody. Golden boy, it was simple. It was green, good; yellow, red, bad. He was all yellows and reds. There was 2 other guys who were all greens with 1 yellow apiece. The company owner took a step back, said, oh, he hired one of those. It would have been a disaster for his organization to have promoted the golden boy. That doesn't mean the golden boy is not the golden boy. They still love him, but now they have a way to develop him, and they understand what they need to do to develop him. This is competency. It's having that clear understanding of what it is people need to do and the results that you want them to get, and then working towards that. It doesn't have to be complex. It doesn't have to be amazing. It doesn't have to be hard. What do you need them to do? What outcome do you want? How do you test for it? And that's it. And what I'm hoping is that you guys have some questions or in particular issues that you might be facing in your own organizations that you might want to talk about, and we can kind of see where we can kind of get to. So I will open it up. Feel free to unmute yourselves and shout out a question, and let's see where we can get to. Anyone? No questions? Clear as mud. Everyone got it? No one has any questions? Hey, Esther.
Hey, Peter. Great presentation. I do have questions, and I wouldn't mind kicking off a discussion.
Sure.
When you are listing competencies, what if you don't know what competency you want from the candidate?
Well, that's really what we're talking about when it's what do you need them to achieve? Start there, right? So when you're thinking about a competency, it's what do you need them to do and to achieve what? That's the big thing, because what do you need them to do? Those are tasks, and tasks are basically meaningless without an outcome. What is it that the result is? So for us, when we start looking at a role for a client and we're starting to break it down, we say, okay, well, what do they do? And why do they do it? And it really is, for us, it's our process is that we'll go into an organization and we'll sit down with the job incumbents, so people that are already in the job. And we say, what are you doing? You write it all down. Why are you doing it? What do you need to do here? And you question every little thing. So again, for us, when we're hiring the admin assistant, we need them to be able to work with minimal instruction. So we gave them, go to this website, take this test, send me the results. That's it. There's no other instructions given. Why do we want them to do this? Because we're not going to be sitting near them. We're almost never going to see them other than on maybe a weekly meeting. I don't know if they're working or not. I don't know if they understood. So the question is, what do you need them to do? And what is the objective? And when you start thinking about that way, it becomes easy. So I can look up a job post and I can pull off a few things. I'm saying, okay, they're trying to do this. Okay, why? What is the goal? What do I think they're trying to achieve there? And, I'll write it down and then talk to somebody. If it's for your own organization, it becomes easy because you know what you want them to do. You know why somebody should be able to edit a document quickly. You know that because I'm going to hand you a document and I know that I typically finish writing a report a day before it's due. And I need you to be able to power through 30 pages and correct my gibberish and send it back to me the way I can be proud to hand it off to my client. I know that, and that's the result I need. I need a happy client. I need a good report without errors that I can send to my client. There's my result. So what do you need to do? You need to be able to quickly edit my document. Done. I've just created a competency. How do I test for that? Before I hire someone, it's simple. I give them a document. So in our case, it's just a little page, not well written, not poorly written. It's not, not kindergartner didn't write it, but it's not well written. They look it over, they decide what needs to be changed, and then they do it. I know, because I have the final version of what I handed my client. I know what it is. I look at it and I say, yeah, good. You know what? Obviously they're intelligent. They did it the way I did it. I don't know if they're actually smart, because I don't know if I did it right, but that's all it is. That it's really that simple.
Mm-hmm.
As you kind of get deeper into it, it becomes more. So for us, we call that proof, like how you're going to prove it, we call those performance statements. We like to say the performance statements should prove the competency. So what are the 4 or 5 things that somebody may need to be able to do, still with a result, to prove that they have that competency? But this is now you're starting to get into our structure and methodologies and blah, blah, blah. But at its most simplest is you write down, I need this person to do this to achieve this. And if you can do that, you've just written a competency. Underneath that, I need them to do, here's how they're going to prove it. Because again, Esther, if they can't prove it, if there's no way for you to test it, then it's not a competency. Because it's not a behavior. It's not them doing something. Because I should be able to test anything if you're going to do it. How you're going to test, there's some leeway in that. And I mean, Jeff and I, we talk about this all the time. Like how, if you're an airline attendant, if you're on a flight, how do you test if someone can actually put out a fire, if there's a fire on that tube in the sky? And it can go anywhere from a knowledge test of, do you know what a fire extinguisher looks like? Do you know how to pull a pin? And do you know that you're supposed to point it at the fire and not at anybody else? Great. All the way to, let's put you up in an airplane, light the airplane on fire and see what you do. Lighting an airplane on fire is very expensive. Writing a test about what a fire extinguisher looks like and how do you point it is useless. So where is it in between there? Where's that proof? What are they going to do to prove that they can do whatever it is you need them to do and get the result that you want them to get?
Thank you. Great response. Like I love the reverse engineering process. Start from the task and then come out with tests to test the competency that you want.
Yeah, perfect. Oh, I saw a few questions on chat. Let me just figure out where my mouse is. There we go. Most of these tests are things that a competent person can manage about. Yes, thank you, Jeff. What do you, okay, so Nam asks, what do you think if I cross a candidate showing, oh, that's a little overqualified? Should I hire? If yes, what could be the consequence? That usually, if the challenge with hiring someone who's, let me go back. What do you mean by overqualified? And it would depend on the role. And that's a very consultancy question answer. It depends. But if the person is overqualified because they've done this job exactly the way you wanted, doing the actions that you need to get the results that you need, it depends. They may become bored. They may not become bored. On the other hand, if it's something where you can find a way to stretch them, that's great. And that's where now we're moving into not hiring people necessarily, but looking at whole person competencies, what we call whole person competencies. So those are things that are not related to the job. And you might be able to look at a person like that who seems overqualified, who has all the competencies you ask for, but maybe at a proficiency level that's higher than what you need. It's starting to look at what else can they do and how will that align with your own business goals. So overqualified might be good because they need the job and they'll be happy to do the job for the next 6 months to a year, maybe more, maybe less. But then if you understand all the competencies that your organization requires, not just for that role, but for every role, and you're looking at this person, you can say, where do they fit? Where can I move them to? Yeah, I need them here now, and they're going to do a great job. But in 6 months, in a year, in 2 years, when they're bored and they're looking around for something else, is there anywhere I can move them within the organization that they're going to like? And that just becomes a question is up to you and your organization. Is it something that is going to provide value for you or not? Is this person going to be able to do what you want? And then, of course, what do you mean by overqualified? So now I don't know if maybe you want to chime in and just kind of, if you have a more specific example of that. If you're talking, you're muted. She may not be. Okay. If anything, then we'll come back to you. Does anybody else have any questions or any kind of thoughts or challenges to me or anything like that?
Yeah, Pete, Jeff here. I just want to add to that point about hiring the overqualified. I think you brought up that I think it's really important is keeping people engaged and interested. And if they're overqualified, they tend to drop off pretty quick. So you may wind up having to hire a replacement for them sooner than you'd like. And we talk about when we're hiring or we're talking to employers about trying to get people and literally their entire organization in an area called their zone of proximal development, which is an education concept. It's beyond where they can do it easily by themselves, but not where they're guaranteed to fail. But so it's that sweet spot where they're outside their comfort zone, but with help and support, they can learn and grow. And people who are in that zone tend to stay more engaged. And so the idea is to grow your organization. You're better off hiring someone that doesn't have the skill set, that you're completely have the skill set, but it's going to have to stretch and grow into the job and then keep them growing, than it is to take someone who's overqualified and have them, come to work and be, on autopilot and disengaged. And the data around that through the Gallup, I'm familiar with the Gallup organization. They do more than just political surveying. They survey a lot of stuff. They have a thing around employee engagement, the Q12 survey. And they correlated levels of engagement at work with levels of education and age. And the interesting data that comes out of that is that those people who are least engaged at work tend to be young people with lots of education. And the reason is because they're hired because they have lots of education and knowledge, and then put in jobs where they don't get to use it. And so they're forced into a box. And the other side of that, the flip side of that, is the people who are most engaged at work tend to be people with maybe less education and qualifications in a formal sense, but that have to come to work every day and try and learn. And that's what keeps people engaged at work. And your primary responsibility as a leader is to grow other people. And so you're almost always better off taking someone with less qualifications, less experience, less education, and growing them into a position. It's more work for you, obviously, but it's almost always a better solution.
And again, but it also comes down to understanding what it is that you want and need from these people. Because if you don't have that, it doesn't matter. So you need to understand what it is, what makes this person overqualified. And is there ever anywhere where you can use them in that way and use them to stretch them and grow them? And whether that's immediately or in the near future. So it always just comes down to the answer of it depends. It depends on what it is that you're after. So it depends on what kind of skills you're after. I looked at your response there, Nam, and you said, the thing you had, we actually experienced that with a client some years back where they wanted people on kind of on a Likert scale from 1 to 5. They wanted 4s and 5s for all these competencies. And we sat down with them and we were like, do you really need that? And can you pay for that? because you don't actually need 4s and 5s. You don't need people who are proficient and experts. You need people who are competent. And then the question was, what does competent look like for you? And in this particular organization, they did try this type of stuff without, knowing what they were trying to do, and they did tests, and they had, I don't know, I can't remember if it was 5 or 10 people come through this testing process that they had from the HR group. Then they went into the hiring manager's interviews, and the hiring manager rejected all of them. And so there was, again, that disconnect between what it is that the organization wants, i.e. the hiring manager, and what HR heard. And so they test these people. And for the total tests, it was like 4 hours of sitting there and coding and writing things and doing things. And in the end, none of these people got the job, even though HR cleared all of them based on the standards that the hiring manager gave them. So how and who you hire and whether they're overqualified or not, it depends on what you need. We talked to another tech company. They are smallish, but multinational. They're a Canadian company, and they're great at what they do. And I was talking to their global HR manager, and she mentioned that they need people who can code in a specific language. And my response was, well, do you actually need people who can code in that specific language, or do you need people who can learn coding? Because what happens and I'm not a computer person by any means. Like, I know there's a thing called C++, and I know there's a thing called Python. I don't know about any of the other ones, and I know there's other ones out there. But if you're doing C++, and then you switch over because the language has changed, has evolved, there's better ways to do it, and you're moving over to Python, what do you do with all your C++ programmers? If you hired them only because they can code in C++, now you got to fire them all, except for maybe 1 or 2 for legacy work. And then what? You keep everybody else? Or you got to rehire the whole company again? Or do you hire them because they have the ability to code? They have the ability to figure out a new language, better ways. So again, it comes down to, what do you need them to do? You don't need them to code in C++. You need them to be able to code. You need them to be able to code because I want this result. So it's the same thing for you. So think about what it is that you mean by overqualified. It doesn't mean 10 years of experience doesn't necessarily mean that they're overqualified, because there's, kind of counter to what Jeff was saying, and Jeff's one of my partners, just so everyone knows, counter to what Jeff was saying is that this person who's got 10 years of experience may just love their job and might not want to do anything else. Or might be a wonderful mentor or coach for people within your organization. So again, it's that concept of understanding, what can these people do? Because again, not everyone is a coach or a mentor. Not everyone's capable of that. I mean, everyone's met people in their lives who you just wouldn't want them teaching you anything, but they're brilliant at what they do. So it's that getting that understanding of, what do you want them to do? What is the result that you want? And not just for that one role, but do it for your whole organization, so that you can understand that if someone shows up and they've got this competency set, or this skill set, if you want to make it a little bit different, can they be useful for your organization at all? Or, as Jeff said, are they going to become really bored really quick and then just kind of be a drain on your resources? So, and the answer is almost always, it depends. Like, if you ever want to just kind of chat about that, and if you want to get into some of the nitty gritty, by all means, just reach out. We're always happy to have a quick chat.
I've got a question, but I think Carla's first.
Okay. Carla, hello, how are you? She's around.
You're muted, Carla.
Too many buttons, sorry. So my question is just purely hypothetically. Let's say there was a tiny company that was mostly just one person, purely hypothetical, and they are looking to grow. And so basically I've been kind of doing most of everything and can outsource some really simple stuff. But is it better to hire someone for like a specific set of skills, or to hire a generalist?
It depends, but Jeff, I'll let you. He loves this kind of stuff and he can't help himself.
No, I can't help myself. The tendency for us small entrepreneurs is to try and hire a mini-me, a clone of ourselves. And the reality is you can't find a mini-me. You're probably cheaper and easier to hire 3 people with very specialized skills in the areas that you're looking for than try and find one generalist who can do it all. And the generalist will cost you an awful lot more money, assuming you can even find them. So I would say it's more overhead from a management perspective to manage multiple people, but you can probably get what you need faster and cheaper if you hire for specialty.
Okay.
And then are you looking to hire internally? Because you can also contract out a lot of stuff these days too. So, I mean, we've done that ourselves quite successfully.
Yeah, no, I've been doing that for years, and I think I'm at the point where I need someone that I can direct full time.
Mm. Mm. But it also comes down to what it is that what do you need them to do, Carla? Like, do you need them to do exactly everything that you do? Like Jeff said, do you need them to do the mini-me, or is there, list it off. If you list off what do you need them to do, and then kind of start thinking about it in chunks of work. Like, for us, we know that we're asking for an admin person with some marketing skills. And it's not really marketing skills. We need an admin person who can do some research. That's really what we need at our company. So think about it in those kinds of buckets, the almost the business functions. Like, what are you looking for? Are you looking for someone who's going to organize your life and deal with your emails and your calendar? Do you need someone who's going to be more like what we're looking for, someone who can do all that, plus do some research to find some new markets or clients? Do you need someone who's going to be more of a salesperson? And once you've chunked it out and you kind of figured out what it is that person needs to be able to do and that what you want them to do and why, then figure out if you can find one person like that or if you're going to need 2. Because I know that was one of the things that we talked about was when I first looked at that big list, I'm like, should this be 2 people? The answer is yes, but we can't necessarily afford 2 people right now. And the level of work that we need them to do is not enough to warrant a specialist in marketing. Does that mean in 6 months' time, we won't be hiring a person to handle just marketing for us full time? No, we might actually have to do that. But right now we don't need that. And so it's having that understanding of what is it that we need them to do. Big list, figure out what's actually important, and then figure out what it is that you're going to hire for.
Okay. Thanks.
No worries. Vaughn.
So a great discussion. And I joined today because I was looking for some answers, and it's great you're solving some problems of reducing costs. There's some experts on the call. I'm just wondering, what are you seeing in industry, or is there any kind of movement? What's happening as far as hiring people for attitude, for how they see the whole, for how they connect with other humans, as opposed to just what we typically hire for, all the left brain, reasoning, rule-based, linear connections, all that stuff. What are you seeing?
It often depends on the role. That kind of stuff is role specific.
Oh, sorry, I forgot. You cannot say it depends.
That's impossible. Can't give you that answer. It's based on the role. And I won't use the word depends, but I'll still say it depends. It's based on the role that you're hiring for. So if you're hiring for a role that's a bit more rote, they don't really need to connect with people. And I mean, there's less and less of these jobs out there. Let's be very clear. Those are jobs that robots will eventually completely take over. But when you're looking at the role, you need to look at, again, what do you need? And so what we found is that the higher you go up in a company, so we've dubbed those competencies that you're talking about, we've dubbed those as personal and professional competencies. That's how we categorize them. So it's those ones that allow you to be successful. The technical stuff, which is what most people hire for, that's your entry fee. You need to have these, but what's going to make you successful is the stuff that's below that. It's those personal and professional. The challenge is that a lot of organizations within industry are still very focused on the hard skills, the technical stuff, the stuff that they can say, can you do A, B, C? Can you move this to this? Can you push this button? Can you do that? Can you problem solve this? What they don't realize is that a lot of what they're looking for is actually from personal and professional. Problem solving is a personal and professional competence. And it's more and more critical. Collaboration, relationship building, these are critical skills, but companies aren't necessarily giving those the level of attention they deserve.
Okay, so you're not seeing any movement in the industry to change that. So what
it again, it depends. So we're working with industry, so a national bio economy association. So they work in HR. And so with them, we've been pointing things out like this with the different organizations that we're working with in the bio industry. So pharmaceuticals, medical devices, bioenergy, agrobiotech, things like that. So they're beginning to kind of see that. And I think more and more organizations are starting to understand they need something different. They need to do things a little bit differently. But based on the role that they're hiring for, very, very much still focused on the technical side of things.
Thank you. I know Jeff had something too. Love to hear what anyone else wants to add as well, what they're seeing.
There was a really interesting article out of HBR just the other day, and they were talking about, particularly for leadership positions, is stepping outside and looking outside of the traditional boxes that people put people in order to, find the right talent, instead of looking at, specific degrees or specific experience or even specific previous job titles or anything else. Because it opens up your organization to a lot more innovation and a lot different thinking. So not to use that famous consulting word, it depends, but it depends. If you're looking for leadership positions, you're looking for different perspectives, you're looking for alternative viewpoints, then the human skills become really, really important. If the further down and the closer to the the front line, the real work that you get, the more the technical skills become more important, unless people are having to work in a very collaborative environment, in which case the collaboration skills, communication skills, team working skills really become a technical skill to work in that environment.
Yeah, including the problem solving that Peter mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing the little amount that gets spent even through our education system in teaching people how to think. And you don't and yet, if I've said this many times, if your plan for success in your career, I said this to students, right, is to be better, smarter, and faster than the machines, well, give it up. You've already lost. What'll make us useful in the future is what makes us human. And the idea of synthesizing information and communication and collaboration and critical thinking and all that is what's going to make us really, really useful moving forward. And we don't spend nearly enough time actually developing those skills or having useful ways of testing for them.
So I got another question: is why are we stuck there? If it's so valuable, why are we stuck where we are?
Because it's way easier to mark that what people do on a test and whether they compute back the right answers on a test. That's the way we train our kids. It's old school thinking. I mean, it was great in the industrial revolution kind of thinking, in batch processing children through a process, a learning factory called a school. It's not necessarily helping us prepare for the future, but it is easier. And it's certainly easier to administer. And when efficiency matters more than results, then that's what we get.
I know Carla's got something I just want to add. This is really relevant with just looking at the governments around the world. Do we want governments, leaders that are just that left brain? They know how to say what they need to say without the human side of actually understanding why they're in the positions they're in.
You're asking me to be political, Vaughn?
That depends.
Yeah, there you go. It depends. I think we need we need humans in human roles. But I also think that those humans need a certain amount of technical skill, right? So it's a balancing act. I think if we did a better job of, go back to what I said earlier about education. I mean, we're way off topic now, but if you look at the way we educate people, the way we build the next generation of our society, the better they're able to think, the more likely they are to select leaders who aren't all fluff and an image and actually think. But that's, I don't know. I'm not holding my breath. That's going to happen, before the next election. But I think it's critical.
Yeah.
I'm having a conversation with a fella later this week specifically about competency in public education. And the idea that public education is the key to a successful society. Mm. And we're failing at it. But again, that's a whole different topic. That's the soapbox we probably don't want to get on right now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it even comes down to so Jeff and the Canada West Foundation, they co-wrote a paper some years back, and revamping it now, but it was called Matchup. So you can Google it and see where you get. But there's value in Matchup in that, kind of, we talk about the overarching for our company, using an MBA term, the BHAG, the big, hairy, audacious goal. We really want to see what would be amazing if we could have a pan-Canadian competency framework where you're able to bring it not just, so, let's leave the top layers and structure of it, but where you're able to start actually assessing competencies in kids. I mean, teachers already are assessors. They assess people. That's their job. But what if we could structure it in a way that they can start assessing things like the things you talked about, Vaughn. Are they able to build relationships? Are they able to collaborate? Are they able to communicate? Are they able to problem solve? And we start monitoring things like that. And then using technology that's coming up. And I mean, Jeff's always in around like the micro credentials, the badging, the blockchain way of tracking someone's life and education. When you start able to do that, by the time people are coming out of high school, you're able to say, here's where you are at. Here's jobs that match you 70%, 80%. These are ones that you can think about because they will be fairly easy for you to get into. Here's ones that you're 30% match, but you have these other competencies that mean that you could be successful here. And start people thinking about it from that perspective. Start thinking about what is it that you need people to do? What is it that you need people to achieve for you? What is it that they need to do? And this is, again, I think this is now starting to almost get into the talent pipeline management stuff. But you're talking about what is the back end, what is the supply of talent, and that's schools. And what do they need to do in order to deliver the end result, the people that you need to grow and strengthen your business years and years later? Now, how do we build that? And there are ways, and there's organizations out there doing cool stuff. Jeff's involved with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, but their foundation side around a bunch of research that they're doing well, not research anymore, really, they're implementing it around stuff like that and looking at that and doing all kinds of cool stuff. So there's lots of organizations out there that are doing these things. The challenge is, it's no different than when I was in school, is that you're getting all this great research and you're getting all this great information, but it's just hard to move industry. And unless that platform around them is burning, it's hard to get them to shift.
What I hear, or how I kind of answer that is, there's some brain damage that we've suffered, and it's a brain damage from using one side of our brain too much. And how do you cure brain damage?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then it's hard to change. Oh, Esther.
Peter, we
Yes.
have 5 minutes left, and I believe Carla, she had a question. So if you want to take that.
Okay, so let's talk to Carla, and then Esther will catch you. Esther, you got my phone number. Esther and I went to school together, so we know each other.
I do. We can chat later offline.
Yeah, so if we don't get to, and same thing, Carla, we know Carla quite well, so you can always talk to us after. But go ahead. What's your question?
Sorry, Esther, you go ahead.
Okay, so very quick one. How has COVID changed the competency? Because now most of us are working from home. So from what you see, do competency get changed a little bit because of COVID?
Mm-hmm. And it also, again, it depends. So there's a lot more focus on the ability to use some of the tools that are out there, the ability to work independently, the ability to problem solve. So again, those things that we were talking about earlier, they're becoming more and more important because now the boss isn't standing over your shoulder and can't walk into your office and say, have you done that? They don't know what you're doing. I mean, some companies are trying to bring in control structures so that, they're monitoring how much you're on your computer. They're monitoring the time your computer is on, things like this. But that's not, A, it's not effective. B, it doesn't do much for the morale of people. It's really coming down to, do you have the people that can do the work? Can they self-motivate? Can they do these things? There's also jobs that are out there that they really haven't changed. And again, the bioeconomy, like if you're a pharmaceutical researcher, you're still doing the same stuff. You still got to go to the lab because you can't take the lab home. You can't. But for different roles, again, it's what Jeff had in the comment there. It's that collaboration. It's that ability to connect with people. It's that ability to build those relationships. Again, this is the type of things that Vaughn was talking about. And those are starting to climb in importance. And there are companies that are getting it slowly. And then there's companies that they've done it for so long that inertia to move them and change them it's really difficult to overcome from inside or outside. It's just difficult. And unless something massive happens, you're not going to see much change. Yeah, digital skills for sure. So.
Yeah, I want to jump in. We have a colleague who's been, screaming in a vacuum about digital transformation for about the last 10 years, and no one would pay attention to him until last February. Well, not last February, but February of 21 and of 20. And then his company has grown to from just him screaming in the wilderness to 20 plus people since then. And he was working with a company that you'd think, I won't name the names, but you'd think would know better. They came up with a policy, kind of a back to work policy that said, only the people with clear objectives get to work remotely. And so the question that we have for them is, don't all your people have clear objectives and deliverables? And if not, what the hell are they doing working for you? Right? And so, I mean, there's a whole management mind shift around this that has to, when we're talking about remote work and virtual teams and things like that, that a lot of companies just are having a hellacious time getting their heads wrapped around. Mm-hmm. And the burnout factor, the PTSD that's attached to, out of sight, out of mind, for people who are, trying to balance all of these other competing priorities, has been incredible. And there's I think a need for a whole different set of management competencies that move away from command and control and move more towards valuing people and people skill.
Great. I actually, a good resource for you guys. Jeff did a series of interviews with ENTA, E-N-T-A. They're up on YouTube. I think there's 3 out of the 4 or 4 now. 4 now. Again, if you need a little bit more information, those are great little things because they'll give you those snippets. But ultimately, and yes, Marlene, I know it's 12 and we're going to finish up. Going back to that, we ourselves were screaming in the wilderness for years. 2, 3, 4 years ago, when we were talking about competencies, we were getting blank stares. Now we're getting people calling us and being like, can we talk to you? Can you help us with this? it's been a change, slow, but it's been a change. It's the same thing. I think in time, they're going to, companies are going to have to realize there has to be a different way to do this, a better way to do this. In our opinion, it's competency, but we'll get there. I think we'll eventually get there, but it is, as Jeff said, it's a slow process. Okay. Thank you, Marlene. Sorry.
Well, thank you, Peter. Thank you, Jeff. And thank you to all of you for joining us today. So this session will be available shortly. I'll be sharing the link with all of you. You can also check out our website at researchyyc.org for more events coming up. Once again, thank you so much, and I'll see you all soon. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.